This is not a statement about any political party, candidate, or administration. It is an examination of what responsibilities citizens have when they believe the principles of their republic are being neglected. Whether you agree or disagree, I only ask that you listen to the argument before judging it.
The promise of citizenship, the duty of the citizen when the republic is in danger. A speech by Chris T. David. The problem of the usurper. My fellow citizens, there are some truths that every generation must learn for itself. One of those is that no nation is immune to corruption, no monarchy, no republic, no democracy, no empire, no revolution, no constitution. Throughout history, ambitious individuals and organized factions have sought power beyond what was entrusted to them, and they have risen to wealth, influence, patronage, coercion, and manipulation. They have wrapped themselves in noble language while pursuing ignoble ends. They have presented themselves as guardians while gradually becoming slave masters. They have claimed to speak for people while quietly separating themselves. This phenomenon is neither rare nor unusual. It is one of the oldest political realities of human history. The usurper is not merely a king who seizes a throne. The usurper is any individual, institution, or faction that acquires power while abandoning the principles that justify that power. The central question is therefore not whether usurpation can occur. History has already answered that question. The question is what responsibilities remain when citizens believe the institutions around them no longer reflect the ideals of how which they were founded on. For a nation is not its politicians, a nation is not its corporations, a nation is not its bureaucracies, a nation is not its ruling class. A nation is an agreement between generations, a promise, a covenant, a set of principles that grant legitimacy to power in the first place, and whenever those powers begin to weaken, the responsibility of preserving them passes not upward to the leaders, but outward to the citizens. Defining institutional caption. The republic rarely collapses all at once. More often than not, it is hollowed out from within. Institutional capture occurs when organizations that were created to serve the public gradually begin serving themselves with the interest of powerful groups instead. It can take many forms. Corruption, regulatory capture, political patronage, corporate influence, extremist infiltration, selective law enforcement, the suppression of scrutiny, concentration of power among networks that become increasingly insulated from public accountability. The danger is not simply that bad actors exist. Bad actors have always existed. The danger emerges when the mechanisms designed to expose and restrain corruption cease functioning properly. When citizens lose confidence that misconduct will be investigated. When institutions appear more interested in protecting themselves than correcting themselves. When public trust collapses, whether these perceptions are entirely correct or partially correct is often less important than people realize. A republic ultimately depends upon legitimacy, and legitimacy depends upon trust. Once enough citizens become convinced that accountability exists only for the powerless, confidence in the entire system begins to erode, and this is how republics become fragile. Not through a single scandal, not through a single election, but through the gradual accumulation of unresolved distrust. Historical lessons. History provides no shortage of warnings. Republics have fallen before. Democracies have been corrupted before. Institutions have been captured. The names change, the flags change, languages change, the methods evolve, but the patterns remain remarkably consistent. Power concentrates, accountability weakens, citizens become cynical, participation declines, and a small number of organized interests become more influential than a large number of disengaged citizens. This pattern appears throughout history because human nature itself has not changed. The lesson is not that collapse is inevitable. The lesson is that maintenance is necessary. Freedom is not self-sustaining. Constitutions do not defend themselves. Institutions do not repair themselves. Republics survive because citizens choose to maintain them. The hierarchy of civic responsibility. When the republic enters a period of uncertainty, responsibility does not disappear, it becomes concentrated. Different groups possess different obligations. The first responsibility falls upon service members. The oath of military service is unique because it is not sworn to a person, it is not sworn to a party, It is not sworn to a temporary administration. It is sworn to constitutional principles. Governments change, presidents change, administrations change, political movements rise and fall. The principles remain the same. Contract expires, an oath does not. For an oath is not merely a legal arrangement, it is a statement of beliefs, declaration that certain principles are worthy of sacrifice and worthy of defense. The second responsibility falls upon first responders. They witness social breakdown before most citizens ever see it. They stand between order and chaos. Their duty is not merely enforcement, their duty is service. Authority without service ultimately loses legitimacy. Law without trust eventually loses effectiveness. A society cannot remain healthy if its institution has become feared more than they are respected. The third responsibility falls upon veterans. They occupy a unique position between military life and civilian life. They have seen the machinery of government from within, and they have experienced civilian society from without. Their role is not domination. Their role is stewardship. Guidance, perspectives, mentorship. The responsibility of experience is to assist those who possess less of it. And finally, the greatest responsibility falls upon the citizens themselves. For citizens are not merely observers of the Republic, they are the Republic. Every legitimate institution derives its authority from them. Yet too many citizens have become convinced that their participation is pointless. Too many have surrendered responsibility in exchange for comfort. Too many have become spectators in their own nation. The society that treats comfort as its highest ideal risks becoming domesticated rather than self-governing. A society distracted by endless entertainment, outrage, consumption, gradually loses the habits required for citizenship. The danger is not merely ignorance, the danger is passivity. The belief that someone else will solve the problem, the belief that someone else will act, the belief that someone else bears the responsibility. But no republic has ever been saved by spectators. The ethics of resistance. At this point, many people ask the same question: what can I possibly do? Some believe they are powerless. Some believe they are outnumbered. Some believe, speaking honestly, will cost them friendships, careers, reputations, or opportunities. Many have chosen abstention. Many have chosen silence. Many have convinced themselves that doing nothing is the safest solution. Yet history demonstrates one simple truth. Every improvement to public life begins because ordinary people refuse to remain passive. The answer is not violence. Violence is often the refuge of those who cannot build. Violence destroys institutions far more easily than it creates them. The answer is participation. The answer is organization, education, community, investigation, journalism, public service, transparency, accountability, local involvement, mutual aid, and then just moral civic engagement. The purpose of resistance is not revenge. The purpose of resistance is restoration. A citizen who demands accountability is not attacking the Republic. A citizen who exposes corruption is not attacking their nation. A citizen who insists that institutions honor their principles is often performing one of the highest forms of public service. The problem of extremism. History offers another warning. Those who seek to save a nation can become a danger to it themselves. Rage can become fanaticism. Conviction can become dogmatism. Justice can become vengeance. The desire to restore order can become a temptation to seize power. This is why restraint matters. This is why principles matter. This is why means matter as much as ends. A corrupt institution should not be replaced by a more corrupt one. An abuse of power should not be answered with another abuse of power. Chaos creates opportunities for heroes, but more so for opportunists. The goal is not a victory over fellow citizens. The goal is fidelity to principles. Restoration rather than ruin. So we arrive at the final question that every generation must answer for itself. What kind of people are we going to be? Not what kind of system are we going to inherit? Not what kind of leaders emerge? Not what kind of circumstances we face? But what kind of people we choose to become within those circumstances. For history does not remember nations by only their crises. It remembers them for their response to crisis. There are always three paths open to a people who believe the republic is in danger. The first is denial. And this is that nothing is wrong, retreat into comfort, and treat uncertainty as normal and corruption as unchangeable. The second is despair, to believe nothing can be done, to surrender the field of public life entirely, to abandon responsibility, and call that abandonment realism. And the third path is responsibility, to recognize difficulty without surrendering to it, to acknowledge corruption without being consumed by it, to confront fear without allowing fear to govern action. Responsibility is typically non-dramatic. It looks like participation when it is inconvenient. It looks like engagement when it is exhausting. It looks like speaking when silence will be easier. It looks like organizing when isolation will be simpler. It looks like paying attention when distraction is everywhere. It looks like refusing to give up on an idea that self-government is still possible. The republic is not restored by a single act of heroism. It is restored by a million ordinary acts of civility, repeated over time until the balance of public life begins to shift again. And so let this clearly be understood. The purpose of this is not a call to destruction. It is not a call to revenge. It is not a replacement of one set of rules with another. It is a restoration of accountability, restoration of trust, restoration of public service, restoration of the idea that the law must serve justice, not merely power, restoration of the belief that citizenship is not a passive identity, but an act of duty. For if a republic is worth preserving, then it must be worth participating in. And if it is worth participating in, then it is worth defending, not with chaos, not with violence, not with hatred, but with clarity, discipline, sustained civic action. Let no one say that they were told what was not required. Let no one say that they did not know their responsibility. Let no one say they believed their voice did not matter and therefore chose silence. Because silence too is a decision. And history always records the consequences of decisions made by entire populations who believe their choices were too small to matter. But the truth is simpler than despair allows. No republic falls all at once. No republic is saved all at once. They are both a result of accumulation. Accumulation of neglect or accumulation of responsibility. Accumulation of resignation or accumulation of participation. Accumulation of silence or accumulation of violence. The future will be decided by which of these accumulates faster. So let this be the answer. We will not be spectators. We will not be a people who look at the conditions of our society and decide that it is too late to act. We will not be a people who confuse fear with wisdom or passivity with peace. We will be citizens. Active, engaged, responsible, difficult to ignore, impossible to fully silence, and committed above all else to the idea that a free people do not need to wait to be saved. They govern themselves, but they do not remain free. And if this republic is to endure, it will not be because corruption never appeared. It will be because enough people chose again and again not to surrender their part in its preservation. That is the task, that is the burden, and that is the promise of citizenship.
If you have found value in this essay, share it with someone who might benefit from it. I don't expect everyone to agree with every point I've made. What I do hope is that it encourages people to think more deeply about citizenship, responsibility, and the role each of us play in shaping the future of our communities. Thank you for listening.